Welcome, my dear brothers and sisters and beloved gender nonconforming folks. I'm Amma Robin, host of Espresso Talk Today, the space where we confront the chaos of living Black in predominantly white spaces. And we also find ways to calm, control, and contain that chaos. Today, I'm having my cardamom coffee while we talk about something deeply personal and profoundly powerful. Core beliefs. I'm sure you guessed that. Core beliefs anchor us in the storm and give us the courage to push forward. They're the truths we hold about ourselves and our community that guide us towards empowerment and ultimately liberation. But this is just the beginning of the conversation. This month, we'll explore individual and collective core values, why they matter, and how we can live by them every day. But before we dive in, hit that subscribe button if you haven't already. And if you're feeling this show, share it with your fam, your crew, your circle, everyone in your community. Now, grab that coffee, espresso, or tea. Tea drinkers are absolutely welcome here too. And close that door behind you. We're going to get deep and we're going to get real. And I hope that y'all are ready for this. Let me start by sharing something personal. A few weeks ago, I had an experience that has left me shaken. Actually, I'm going to say it's left me different too. I was gone shopping and I was carrying grocery bags when I fell down really hard in the parking lot. I was carrying big bags and I slipped on something and fell down. My groceries went flying everywhere and it was painful. There were lots of people around, people who just looked, hesitated, and then kept walking, or they just kept driving past me. They made eye contact with me, and they just kept going. Not one person stopped to help me. Not one person even asked if I needed help. Well, as expected, I was angry, I was humiliated, and I was disappointed. And that anger grew into something of a rage. And I thought, if no one will help me, then I'm not going to help anyone else. No more holding doors, no more small acts of kindness, we're letting people get in front of me. But then, and actually, when I made that decision, it felt really good for a while. But then it hit me. This wasn't who I am. Compassion is one of my core values. And that moment of hurt was really pulling me away from my truth. This experience reminded me of why core values matter, especially as Black people navigating in predominantly white spaces. Life's chaos, systemic racism, and daily aggressions often challenge us to abandon what we hold dear, who we are. But our core values are what keep us grounded and remind us of our power, our dignity, and probably most importantly, our humanity. And this is why today we are discussing core values. Not New Year's resolutions, not goal setting, not to-do lists. Those things are okay too. But today, this whole month, in fact, we're going deeper and looking within to examine who we really are and what really moves our souls. And when we dig deep, we find our core values. Now, you may be asking, so what are core values? I know you know what, these New Year's resolutions are, to-do lists and goals and all that. What are core values? I'm glad you asked, because core values are the deeply held principles that guide how we live, how we act, and how we show up with the world. They're the essence of what we stand for and shape how we respond to challenges, to relationships, and to opportunities. Core values define not just who we are, but also the kind of world that we want to create. And we're going to look at two kinds. Individual core values. Let's start with that. So individual core values reflect who we are and what we prioritize as people, our personal core values. For example, you can think of resilience. How does that show up? You could think, I will rise no matter what challenges come my way. Or, like I was thinking, compassion. I treat others and myself with kindness and understanding. Another one is one of my favorites, courage. I'll confront fear and stand in my truth. So those are individual core values, and they could also apply to this next group, the collective core values. And these collective core values unite us as a community, as a family, we all have different kinds of collectives that we're a part of. And so if you think about the kind of collectives that you're in, your family, your community, maybe even your job, there are lots of different collectives that we're a part of. But think of it this way. There's a collective core value of unity. So we'll rise together. Liberation. Our freedom is connected and non-negotiable. Or joy. I love this one. Black joy is revolutionary and essential. So these values, I hope you can see, are not just abstract ideas. They actually guide how we navigate the world and respond to challenges and show up for ourselves and for others. We may not know that they're operational because they may not be in the front of our minds all the time, but they are operational and we are living by those values, whether we're conscious and aware of those or not. And now I'm going to go cognitive behavioral for a minute. All of y'all know that I highly, value therapy. And I've been in therapy for a long time, and I found it very helpful in many ways. Some are corrective kind of things, and some are things that are just trying to take me forward. But this one, the particular kind that I value, there are lots of others, so I'm not giving one credence or one credit over another. But this is cognitive behavioral, and I think they work really well with core values. So core values within the cognitive behavioral model act as the foundation for our thoughts, our emotions, and our actions. They're the mental anchors that help us make sense of the world and respond to it with clarity and purpose. As a Black woman, understanding and living by core values really has been transformative and empowering in the fight against racial chaos and in protecting my mental and physical health. I'll have more on that later. Probably not in this episode, but in one that's coming in a few weeks. Well, core values really are the focal point in cognitive behavioral in that model. And here's why. Number one, core values shape our thought patterns. That's right. They influence how we interpret and process experiences. For example, if you hold the value of resilience, then you're more likely to view challenges as opportunities for growth rather than insurmountable obstacles. That's right. And this mindset fosters constructive thought patterns and emotional strength. The same applies to respond, going back to my falling down in the parking lot incident. Compassion is a core value for me. But for this reason, I didn't want to act how the people in the parking lot acted. So, stepping over me and not helping me and all that. I didn't want to become that kind of person, lacking compassion, among other things. So even though I was temporarily, taken away from it, I fell back on my core value, in this case, compassion. And frankly, I felt empowered that I didn't let that incident change or diminish me or take me away from who I am. Yeah, core values also direct behavior. Our values guide our actions. That's true, even in the face of adversity. For example, the value of compassion, just as an example, might inspire you to extend kindness even when it's not reciprocated. And this can actually create a ripple effect of positivity and empowerment in yourself and even beyond you to your community. That's right. Number 3, core values also build emotional resilience. They do. By aligning our actions with our values, we can experience a sense of purpose and stability, even amidst systemic racism and microaggressions. Living by values like courage and self-determination helps combat feelings of powerlessness, and it instills a feeling of agency and control. You need to choose the right values, though, the values that resonate with who you are. We'll discuss a little bit more of that in a minute. And core values also challenge negative beliefs. Ooh, this is an important one. Negative beliefs and negative experiences, like I had in the parking lot. Racism or living Black in predominantly white spaces often implants really harmful narratives, such as I'm not enough or I have no control. It really can make you feel that way. And core values then provide a counterbalance to that. They offset that. The value of freedom, for example, that's just one of them, affirms the belief that you can live authentically and unapologetically. It can counterbalance a feeling of I'm not enough, or I have no control, or I don't belong. So your core values can offset that, so you don't go around carrying those negative beliefs or having the result of negative experiences like falling down in the parking lot when I was becoming a really angry person. That wasn't who I am. So you might be asking at this time, does this really matter? Racism isn't going away, but racism can't choose my values, and it can't take away my core values. That's all true. I choose to live by my core values. Great. What can a white supremacist society or racism do that would affect the values by which I live? Do we even need to talk about this? Because racism can't change who I am. Well, it's really funny, and negative experiences can change who I am. As I said, it's really interesting. I would have thought that too. I was thinking that as well, until the parking lot incident when no one helped me. No one showed any compassion or extended any compassion, not the slightest bit, to me. And that rage I went into was changing me. So that experience changed me temporarily. Fortunately, I went within. I spent time in nature. I did a lot of journaling, and I was able to realize that, wait a second, this is inconsistent with who I am and who my core values are, and who I want to be and how I want to show up in this world. So I was able to counterbalance that and adjust and do a reset and come back to who I am. But I'm really glad that you asked that question. And my answer really is that racism is a powerful system that does affect us on so many levels. And some of them are conscious and some aren't. And systemic racism is designed, yes, I said it, designed by design. This is by design. This isn't by coincidence. It's by design to attack and erode Black dignity, unity, and Black empowerment, all of which are really important for our personal and collective power and our growth. But core values can be tools of resistance, as I said earlier, but particularly for Black people. They do this they reaffirm our humanity. Core values like dignity and self-worth counteract that dehumanizing, environment and those dehumanizing messages of racism and white supremacy. They remind us that we are worthy. We do belong. Core values also foster solidarity. That's right, the collective core values. They unite us. If you believe in unity and solidarity, They encourage community building and collective action against injustice and collective action to support our children, our elderly, our disabled, everyone in our community. And they remind us that we rise together. And they also drive action. Core values drive action. Living by core values like liberation and resilience motivates us to challenge oppressive systems and to create pathways to liberation. While I'm referring to the cognitive behavioral principles to discuss core values, and people can say, well, these are all considered race neutral. Adopting and living by core values as a Black person in predominantly white spaces is a different experience. It is not a race neutral experience. White people are actually encouraged, and this is great, to establish and live by core values like courage, resilience, freedom, self-defense. They're praised for that, and honestly, it should be praised and rewarded. But here's where the racial chaos, the racism is found. These values are actively discouraged and even punished in Black people. A white supremacist society does not praise or encourage Black people to live by individual or collective core values, even as white people are adopting them to uplift themselves and to live with dignity. Black people and Black communities are not encouraged to live by the values enumerated in, for example, the Declaration of Independence, to value life, liberty, pursuit of happiness, or to assume that the values enumerated in its preamble that were also created for us, that all men are created equal, that they don't want us to assume and live by those core values either, or those core beliefs of equality. I know, it's kind of strange, isn't it? So it isn't a race neutral kind of experience. Core values are, what's the word? Experienced or promoted differently in different communities. And this disparity, I think, dates back to the period of enslavement, probably before, but it's continued. It hasn't changed, even through segregation and into modern times. But core values aren't just for white people. Despite the messages we're getting, they are not just for white people. Even as we are denied them, as part of denying our humanity, Black people, we have always fought for our rights, for our life, our liberty, our pursuit of happiness, our community, and our humanity. And even in the face of threat and danger, we've always lived by core values as individuals, and perhaps even more so collectively. This finding a way out of no way I talked about on an earlier podcast show, has shown Black resilience and shown Black solidarity and shown our fight for freedom. Woo, wow, that was a lot. And you know what time it is? What time it is now? It is time for our first breather break. This is a minute when I stop talking and I just take a minute to breathe. This gives both of us, all of us, a chance to process this information and honor our presence together in this space. When things get intense, I like to breathe. When I need to think, I like to breathe. I hope you do too. And let's start our breather break now, and I will return in 1 minute. I'm back. Asante Sana. Thank you, fam, for staying with me. I hope that you did a bit of breathing or took other self-care steps. I did, and I'm ready to get back to it. So, for Black people, core values are more than just personal principles. They're survival tools and, get this, revolutionary acts. Living by our values in predominantly white spaces often feels like swimming upstream. The system wasn't built to support us or our values or our principles or our dreams or any of that, and it actively works to challenge and undermine them. We're often denied and punished for asserting our core values. And often, too, when we do have core values, they take advantage of that. I do think about that with my core value of compassion, how they're happy to take the benefit of it, but not to extend it to me. But I also do have to work through that it's not about reciprocation, it's about who I am. As Black people, our core values are constantly challenged, and society punishes us for asserting our humanity. For instance, when we demand respect, we're labeled as angry or difficult. That's enforcing our dignity. They undermine unity. Our collective values, like Black spaces are sacred, are diminished as exclusionary or divisive. They attack our empowerment. Systems of oppression work to erode our confidence and our pride and self-worth. And these attacks are deliberate. They aim to weaken us individually and collectively. But here's the truth. Core values are our power. When we hold on to them, we defy the systems that seek to control us and weaken us and divide us. To live by our individual and collective core values is an act of resistance against a society that seeks to erase and control us. Our collective core values are particularly powerful and particularly feared by white supremacist society. That society has long felt threatened when Black people organize and work together. That's right. For example, think of the Black Panther Party. They had their 10-point program, which was rooted in core values of justice, equality, and community care. Programs like free breakfast for children and healthcare clinics and public safety controls embodied their value of collective empowerment. But was this supported by white society? No. The FBI labeled them as a domestic threat. Actually, they were considered like the most dangerous threat to internal security. Remember that? Just because they were doing breakfasts and equality and patrols to stop police violence and setting up healthcare clinics. But the FBI labeled them as a domestic threat, and not because they were violent, because they weren't. They were not violent, but because their values were empowering and it uplifted the Black community. And there's also Kwanzaa. Think of Kwanzaa. Principles such as umoja, unity, or kujichagulia, self-determination, celebrate Black empowerment and community building. But Kwanzaa has been dismissed and ridiculed as not a quote-unquote real holiday. And this is because it represents collective Black strength. Collective Black strength. But our history is filled with these leaders, these collectives, who have done amazing work, even if they are being attacked. And there are other individuals who have been leaders, and they've lived by their values. I'm going to give a few examples. Dr. Martin Luther King. He was guided by nonviolence and equality. And he led peaceful protests like the Montgomery bus boycott and the March on Washington. Harriet Tubman, my girl Harriet, she was driven by freedom and courage, and she risked her life repeatedly to lead enslaved people to freedom through the Underground Railroad. Another one of my girls, Maya Angelou. Auntie Maya, with resilience and the power of her voice, she used her poetry and autobiographies and her speaking to inspire others to find their dignity. Oh, Malcolm X, Brother Malcolm, his commitment to self-determination and pride fueled his powerful speeches and advocacy for Black empowerment and independence. Well, lesser known but not any lesser powerful, Ida B. Wells. Rooted in justice and truth, she courageously documented and campaigned against lynching, exposing the horrors of racial violence to the world. And this was done really at great risk and threat and danger to her own life, and she kept doing it. And Frederick Douglass. His belief in equality and freedom inspired him to fight for the abolition of slavery and advocate for women's rights. And all of these were done at risk to his life, too. That's right. Even though we know him as a great, amazing orator and what he did, traveling around and speaking, and probably one of the most quotable people who lived on this planet, he was still in grave danger because he was fighting against slavery. And finally, W.E.B. Du Bois. He does not get enough credit, but he was guided by education and unity, and he co-founded, the NAACP, and championed the importance of intellectual growth and collective action for Black liberation. And this was radical. This was revolutionary. These leaders remind us that core values aren't just personal, as I said. They are revolutionary. They challenge the systems of oppression and create pathways to freedom for all of us. So core values really are, I hope I'm convincing you of this, they are the foundation of Black empowerment and liberation. And they remind us of our worth, unite us in our purpose, and inspire us really to take decisive action. When the world tells us we're not enough, our core values help us to stand tall. And when we're faced with systemic racism, our core collective values inspire us to fight for justice and support each other. So, how do we do this? How do we determine our core values? As I said, they're already operational. We just have to dig deep and find out what they are, and if they really reflect who we are. So how do we identify and live by our core values? Well, I'm just going to give, 4, simple steps. But I say simple, but they're not easy. Number 1, reflect. Think about what principles are most important to you. Think about moments when you felt most grounded or felt most alive. What value was at the core of that experience? Then number 2, identify. Choose one value that empowers you personally, such as authenticity or courage. There are a bunch of them. Define the collective values for your family, your community, or any of the collectives that you're a part of, like, for instance, unity or liberation, too, any of those collective values. And number 3, this is important, write them down. Keep them visible. Let them be a reminder of who you are and what you stand for. And finally, revisit and refine them. Core values evolve. They do evolve. They change as we change and grow as we grow. Check in regularly with yourself to ensure that they still resonate with your truth. Ask yourself, what values have guided me? And what values do I want to continue living by moving forward? If you're wondering how to start on your core values journey, I have a great first step. Those steps that I mentioned are good, but we can take one even before that. On the Espresso Talk Today website, on the blog page, I list 192 core values for you to consider. There are lots more, but this is a good list to start with. go through the entire list and then select 50. That's right, 50. Then go through that list and then whittle it down to 25. And keep repeating this exercise until you've whittled it down to 5. That's right, just 5. This is a simple exercise, but no way is this easy. I admit that. And you can't do it. I don't think you can do it in one sitting. It may take weeks, but take the time with it. That's fine. And here's the good part. You don't have to do it alone. No. Later this month, we can do this exercise together. We can at least start it together. Stay tuned for when I announce that we'll do this core values exercise together. I'm going to do it on Instagram, but I encourage you, before any of that, to start looking at the list right now. And you can find it on my website, on the blog page, and on my Instagram page in the profile. By the way, you can also do this exercise with your family, your friends, or another trusted person in your life. You can do this for the personal core values or for the collective core values in your family and at the office or with your friends or with your team, whatever. Whew, wow. Well, I have finished my cardamom coffee. So I think this is a good time to start concluding this podcast show. It's been a lot of information, but it really is just the beginning of our core values discussion. I hope that you enjoyed it and that you will join me as we continue this really courageous and absolutely life-affirming journey together. Next time, we'll dive deeper into individual core values and how they can empower you in the face of life's challenges, as well as guide you and ground you. In the meantime, I encourage you to reflect on your own core values, from the list. And remember, core values are our anchor, our power, and our liberation. Together, they remind us of our brilliance and our ability to create a just and equitable future for ourselves and for our community, for this world. Asante Sana, thank you for being in the building and showing up with courage to talk about these issues. If you want to keep discussing or reading about these issues, then please subscribe to my weekly Black Empowerment newsletter, The Nomo Beat. We discuss lots of different issues there. You can get your dose of Black empowerment every single week. Never a dull moment. Lots of powerful, uplifting, and liberating moments, though. You can subscribe on the Espresso Talk Today website at espressotalktoday.com or on Instagram at on my page, Ama Robin L. That's AMA _ ROBIN _ the letter L. Or you can join us to discuss these issues on Instagram. Just share your thoughts and find an uplifting and safe space where you are valued and you're heard. Again, find me on Instagram at Ama Robin L. I'm Ama Robin for Espresso Talk Today. And remember, now more than ever, strength, soul, and reparations. Ashe, fam.